I'm just hold on one sec. I'm trying to get your volume up on my headset.
Okay. That's I've never heard that before. Nobody's ever said they needed to turn my volume up. Not too long ago, I got to talk to Philip Fracassi about his new book at the time, which was Boys in the Valley, and that was awesome. Well, in that short amount of time, either he forgot who I was or he was just feeling really generous because he sat down again with me. And in that short time, he's got like about a whole library ready to come out. So I had a great conversation with him. He's got a lot of exciting things going on. I decided to go with a Zoom call and use the completely washed out white filter because I thought I need to be even more white. So just that's a fun part whenever I talk. You're kind of blinded, so don't watch and drive. But it's a great interview despite me. Philip's got a lot going on. Awesome stuff. Check it out. Get like 1 million books. He's got a whole library, like I said. So enjoy the video, enjoy the interview, and stay frosty.
For once, I'm not talking to myself. It's time to go beyond the book and get over your shelf.
So hello, friends. Welcome back. I'm sitting here with Philip Fracassi talking about everything that we didn't talk about last time. Just catching up, just talking, just seeing this guy's on fire. I think Fracassi's Italian for on fire because he's like been publishing everything. He's opened up the cupboard and out came all this content. Now everybody is going to get everything they ever wished for. And it's been wonderful. It's been a lot of fun. I think last time we talked, I had this. Right. So, and I just finished it like probably 5 minutes before you got on. And now I got all this. So, and this is definitely something that's been happening a lot in the collectors groups because of a little group called Fracassi Freaks. But I'm sure we'll get into all that. So welcome, Philip, to the show.
Thank you.
So you're a busy guy. You know, the funny thing is,
just gonna have a sip of water real quick.
So I had to pause so the camera would go to you.
Oh.
I can't
Video
control
cue.
that.
Throw it to Fracassi. Let's go.
Yeah, throw it to Fracassi. I don't have a director of photography sitting in a booth, and I don't have Audio Hopper giving me microphones, and I just got Zoom and I paid for it. So it cuts to when whoever's talking, and that's annoying because sometimes I'm just like, oh yeah, and then it's like on me for a full second.
Gotcha.
Which is a long time.
Yeah, I'll do a 3, 2, 1.
That's the money shot. So then I got to get some sound effects going on, and I got to hopefully I got a free app for that.
The sweet elixir, the Jeff elixir.
Well, it's the Grail. It's the Grail. It's
yeah, and by the way, the messaging is perfect. I drink and read things. That's literally I have that tattooed on my back. So.
Yeah, that's 2/3 of a Jeff Ward day. Drink, read things, sleep. That's all that can be accomplished in a Jeff Ward day. So you're a very busy guy. I think there's just so many things. Like I have a list of 5 books that are on my pre-order list, or at least on my radar. I don't know if I've pre-ordered them all, but Don't Let Them Get You Down, Child Alone with Strangers, Revelations, 13 Haunted Houses. I don't know if I have that title right.
Yeah, I think that's right.
And then Gothic.
I think that's it. Yeah.
So
did you say Child Alone with Strangers? Yeah.
Yeah. That's the trade, and I know that you have some deluxe editions in the works. So what's going on? Like, how busy are you? Like, what's up?
Yeah, it's one of those things where you're ramming your face into a wall at 100 miles an hour again and again and again. And nothing is breaking for you and nothing is going your way. Nobody's wants to publish your stuff, and people are turning down your stories. And then for me anyway, it just kind of became like all the no's started becoming yeses, which is great, but it's also like, oh, darn it, this is a lot of, now I have a lot of stuff coming out kind of all together at the same time. And yeah, dude, I mean, I want to get I'm old, right? I'm an old guy. So I'm not like some young whippersnapper who's like breaking into the thing and here I go. And, you know, I'm old and I'm like, I'm going to die any minute kind of guy. That's my mentality. Like a bus is going to come through that wall or.
Well, I mean, we're all under danger of the bus coming through the wall. I mean, the chances are slim, but they're not zero.
They're not zero.
No. And so, yes, but that doesn't have anything to do with age.
No, well, my point is that I want to get I want to get all this stuff out. I have a lot of stuff inside that I want to get outside. And I'm not like, you know, I'm not finessing it. I'm just kind of like, if people say they want to publish something, I'm like, great, let's publish something. And that's how it happened with Boys in the Valley. You know, Paul reached out and said, hey, you got a novel? And I was like, yeah, I got a bunch of them, you know, pick one. And so yeah, so I've been really fortunate, and it's just been good fortune, but it's a lot, but you have to we talked about this last time, you got to make the donuts, right? So I do work really hard on creating new content, pretty much constantly. I have a pretty good backlog of ideas that I can pull from. New stuff comes up. So I'm just trying to get stuff out. I love publishing new stuff. I do worry a little bit that I'm oversaturating the market with my stuff. You and I talked a little bit about that. And it's just, but I don't give a shit. You know, I mean, we're like, you know, people, you know, you don't have to buy it all when it comes out. You can buy it 5 years from now. I don't know. But I think each one of those things will find a unique audience, and maybe there'll be some carryover. Maybe people will like one book and they won't like the other book. I don't know, because my stuff, especially my stuff that hasn't been published yet, or that hasn't even been sold yet, is very different than the stuff that's been sold, in the sense that it's more, you know, more mainstream, more thriller. Like the one I'm writing right now, which I'm turning in a couple weeks, I'm just finishing the final edits on. It's really a science fiction, you know, novel. So I don't know. So I'm just kind of like, I'm just going with it. I'm not worrying about like career path or strategy but I'm just kind of like, if somebody wants to publish something I wrote, let's do it. I'm happy to go.
How long ago did you write all these? So you said I have a lot sitting there. Now, like, for example, Josh Malerman,
the trunk
from the High Strung, he had like 28 books completely written before he got Bird Box published. And then it feels like it's not that he's prolific, and he is, and he does write. Anybody who wrote 24 books is prolific by definition, but he had them for a while. So have you had all these stories in some form written down previously?
In some form. So yeah, with Josh, and I think Josh has shared his trunk of wonder on social media, which I've been able to sit and burrow through at my leisure, which was a lot of fun. Wow. But yeah, Josh has a lot of fully written manuscripts. I don't have that. I have a lot of ideas. I do have screenplays. So because I used to be a screenwriter, and I still am technically a screenwriter, but I hate screenwriting. So, but you know, 10 years ago I was writing screenplays and getting them produced by Lifetime and whoever. So I have all these dead screenplays. And so one thing I've been doing is going back to those old dead screenplays and saying, well, I worked really hard on this story. It's a good story. It's fully fleshed out. There's interesting characters. I like it. You know, why not, you know, like that meme, why not both? So it's like, well, I'll just take that story and make it into a novel. And what's been interesting about that process, Boys in the Valley was an example of that. The story I'm writing now is an example of that. I'm kind of moving into a bit of uncharted territory with the next one that I have on that I want to do, because it would be sort of from the ground up. But Child Alone with Strangers, which is coming out in August, that's an original idea. That was never never anything but
Mm-hmm.
the novel that's going to be. So it comes from different places, but I also just have a lot of like I just have a lot of like ideas. Like I just have like notebooks and hard drive space filled with just like, oh, wouldn't it be cool if I did this, or wouldn't this be interesting or whatever. So that's sometimes when I go back, especially for short stories, if I'm like not sure what I want to write about, I'll just like skim through my, my files, and I'll see if there's something in there that piques my interest, and I'll use it. But nothing, I don't have a bunch of novels laying around like Josh. I wish I did.
Yeah.
But no, I will say this: the novel that I sold to Zagaba, "Don't Let Them Get You Down," that was a novel that I wrote about 10 years ago, in its first iteration, and I obviously did a major. It's a short novel, and it's a very personal novel, and it's very dark, and it's very depressing. But it's actually about depression. But it's an important, so it's an important novel to me. So I was very happy to be able to do that with Zagaba. But that's a novel that I had sitting in the trunk, so to speak, that I really wanted to get out there. I have another novel that I have sitting in the trunk that that's never going to see the light of day. I got a couple of them, but that one I thought was publishable.
Can't you just bust out a pseudonym and see if you can get that other one published?
I don't know, man. I don't think I want to publish it. I mean, I don't know. Believe me, I've thought about it. Like I'm like, Raven Black, presents this YA novel about an actress gone bad. She didn't know what hit her. She got in with the wrong crowd. Which is exactly what the novel's about. But so I don't think so. And I do want to keep it to horror. The one thing I've learned is I get cyclical with what I want to write. So the science fiction novel I'm writing right now is very hard science. Like I've been I interviewed this guy from NASA on like, so how when you see a movie and it's a space movie and they show a ship and the ship has like these solar sails that catches the light and energy. That's a real thing. Like that's a legit real thing, right? So the guy who did that, he helped me with the guy who's in charge of the sales. That's literally what he does at NASA. And my buddy Rick Cross hooked me up with him, who works for NASA as well. So anyway, so yeah, but so I've enjoyed it, but I'm rewriting that book right now, and I'm going through all the stuff. Like it's like, wait a minute, how is that that weird time travel thing? And I'm reading all these science books, and I'm just like, this sucks. So I'm happy to have that almost off my plate. And now I really want to get back to writing something. Like I'm just going to get back. I can't wait to write like a horror novel again. Like I want the meat and potatoes, let's grind some people up. Let's have some creatures. let's have some scares. So I'm excited to write my next one, which is going to be a straight up horror novel. Yeah.
So far, I haven't read anything where you're grinding anyone up necessarily, but there's been bad stuff that's happened.
It's coming.
To get back to your screenwriter days, is as far as I think, and I don't know, obviously you're the only one who knows for sure, but I think that's helped your writing in the regard that when I read Commodore, for example, there were some little details that were very visual, that were very much I could see as screen direction or some sort of a shot setup. Like, for example, you bring the moment where Jim puts his foot and kicks off and then starts pedaling. And you almost feel that screen right there. You almost feel like a tight close up on the back of his heel and as he kicks the dust, like I think those details totally help the story because it's those sorts of things that put you in the moment and make it feel immediate. And so thinking visually is a gift for, I think, writers to get that idea. Because I remember one time, this is a little different. It's not necessarily visually, but it's tactile. Stephen King said, it's not enough to imagine the rat jumping in the person's mouth as they're screaming. You got to tell them how the whiskers are tickling the inside of the throat to really make it feel like, yes.
Yeah.
So I think the visual cues, and I don't know, do you feel like that's been part of your training or?
I don't, yeah, it's a chicken and egg thing, right? Like, I don't know if it's something that I had inherent, which allowed me to do this kind of work, or if it was the work that But yes, two answers to your question is, the first is regarding the visuals. I think it just comes naturally. I don't think about it like, oh, I want to make this necessarily more visual, but the way I write is, and I don't think this is very different. But obviously I'm in the scene, like so I'm seeing everything. I mean, if I'm in a room with two people who are arguing, I'm in the room and I'm looking at him and I'm looking at her and I'm looking around the room, and there's a spider crawling over there and there's a crack in the wall over there and the door is, double bolted or whatever. So little things like that. But it is important. Little things like that do go a long, long way, because you want, and I do try and do that. I try and give details, not overwhelmingly so, but I do try and give little details so that people can get more of a visual sense of something. Like, like I said, it's a lot different to have somebody say, he's in a room with white walls, or, he's in a room with white walls with the plaster is cracking and whatever. So, but the visceral thing is something that I did develop. I did work at. And I think I'm from being redundant with our last interview. I apologize, but I think there's a guy named Ralph Robert Moore, and he's a writer who I greatly admire, and he publishes all his own books, and he's been fairly successful doing that. And he's in a lot of magazines. He's in Black Static a lot, and I read a story by Rob. That's how his friends call him. It's like Steve and Rob. So Rob is so good at that. Like, he is so good at like finding that whisker on the cheek moment. And he and I have talked about it quite a bit. He and I have had those conversation about it. And I read a story by him in Black Static. I can't remember the name of it, but I read it and I was like, that was like the most terrifying thing I've ever read, because it was so physical.
Yeah.
And it was about, I think it was about a goat, a baby goat has a person head. And it like rapes somebody.
Oh my God.
Dude, it's horrible. It's horrible. And but I read it and I was like, what is happening? This is insanity. I've never read anything like this before.
Wow.
And so I do work hard on creating those tactile moments as you described it. I think in my story, Fragile Dreams, which is in Beneath the Pale Sky, I really went to town on that, because it's about a guy trapped. The building falls on him. He's trapped in the dark with a building on top of him and he can't move. And so that whole story is about, what is he feeling? Literally, what is he feeling? Where, and then when things start happening to him, it gets really graphic. So I do try to do that. So both of those things are definitely tools in the toolbox, as it were, that allow people to visualize the stuff better. I think dialogue is something, if I took anything from screenwriting, I would say probably dialogue was probably the big thing. I learned how to write dialogue. And it's different in a novel, obviously, but the thing about screenwriting is it can't be like, the dialogue has to feel natural, right?
Yeah.
Because it's actors are saying it. And so I think when you're writing a novel, you kind of want the same thing. It's a little different, but you kind of want that same thing if you want it to feel very natural. There's a lot of hums and I get, and ellipses and sentence that you start and then you don't necessarily finish. And, so I try and, when I write dialogue, I try and make it a little bit messy, a little bit real.
That's interesting, because I think a lot of people, they go too far and they make it sound like everybody talks like they're talking at the drive-through, at a faulty drive-through speaker, like very way too casual, and sometimes not fitting the mood, or they try to write phonetically in some ways that just it throws people off. But yeah, I'm sure that's what's funny is I was in a writer's group in my 20s, and I was at this, and this one guy came in and he brought in a work, and it was very much like a screenplay. It was like, this person walked in, she was 5'6", long brown hair and green eyes. And she said, and it read like that. And everybody kept telling him, this is a screenplay. Why don't you take it over there and make it a screenplay? He's like, no, it's a story. So I took that story and I fleshed it out and I read it at the next workshop. and the guy never came back.
Right.
Because he was so. But yeah,
threw you a couple birds on the way out, probably.
Yeah, yeah. He didn't like. I don't know what became of him, but maybe
his name was Dean Koontz. He's done well for himself, Jeff. He's done well for himself.
Yeah, he has. I only read Watchers. Have you read any Dean Koontz?
Yeah, dude. I grew up on the Koontz.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So
Strangers, Watchers, Lightning. I was even reading his pseudonym stuff when I was younger. Lee.
Really?
Lee. I can't remember what his pseudonym is, but yeah.
So he's like the YA, or is he like Starter King? Is he?
I don't know what he. I don't know.
People are mixed about him, but.
Well, he's like, he just puts out so. I mean,
yeah.
He puts out so much stuff, and now he doesn't really do horror anymore. Now he does like thrillers, with like, she's an ex-CIA agent.
Yeah.
He's a bounty hunter, and
right.
It's actually not a bad idea, but
write that down. It'll be recorded, so you'll be able to see it later.
Thank you. But so I don't know, but I read him, but I guess I read him when I was younger. I don't read him so much now, but I have read him. I don't mind. He wrote a book called I don't know, he's got like 4,000 books, but he wrote one book that I read like a few years ago, and it was really good, and it was like really fast paced, and it was like, I was like, man, this is great. I'm really enjoying this. And then I read another book of his like maybe a year later, and I was like, this is awful. I could not get through it. And it was like two totally different people wrote these books. So I don't know. You're taking your chances with Koontz.
Yeah. I try to practice a rule of not making fun of people who are phenomenal successes and sort of household names, but I also try not to make fun. When I write a review, I try to keep it about the book and my reactions. There's something that angers me about a bad book, like a bad comedian. I don't know, just something about that. And so I try to resist it, because these are people. Obviously, the creative enterprise is hard enough. Then you get keyboard warrior going off about.
Man. Look, if the books are selling and publishers are paying you to write, I doubt people care what the review,
Yeah.
It's like, the guy, the Marvel movies, I don't think they care if the Rotten Tomatoes are 50%. So, but yeah, I see I try not to insult people who are super successful as well, because they might be listening and then they'll never blurb my book.
Well, that's the thing about my channel. We don't have to worry about Dean Koontz paying us a visit.
Dean, I'm joking. Jeez. I love you, buddy.
Yeah.
Love you, Koontz.
I love you and all your pseudonyms.
Right.
So what? I know you've had a lot of success with small presses, and like Earthling took that chance on the first novel and all these things, and then you have Child Alone with Strangers coming out as a trade publication first, if I'm correct, right?
Yeah. So Child's coming out. That's Skyhorse / Talos Press, which is an imprint of Skyhorse.
So that's a big publishing house, right?
Yeah. I mean, they're not. Yes, they're sort of like in the world of independent publishers. They're sort of the biggest of that group. Yeah, they're like a company versus like a person.
So do you find you have more risk takers in the small press world? Like, are they more open to it, or is it harder to sell a larger place your work?
It's much harder to sell to a large publisher. I don't know if it's a risk thing. I mean, look, independent publishers, for them the risk is almost greater, because if they take on a book, they're putting their own money into it, they're putting their own time into it. Whereas someone like Skyhorse, they've got Bob and Sally down in beta testing will take it or whatever. So there's people. They have those gray walls and the staplers and So I think it's a different kind of risk. I do think that I've had really horrible success.
Interesting. Horrible success.
I've had horrible.
I've had phenomenal failures.
I've had phenomenal failures and horrible success with big publishers. My agent has been trying to ram my books down big publishers' gullets for a few years now, and the horror is a difficult sell. And they all say nice things. They all say nice things about my writing and stuff, but they're always like, we don't know how we can market it, or it's not mainstream enough, or so I don't know. But I think, smaller presses, it's a bit more of a personal risk, but I also think you don't need the book to sell 1 million copies to make your money. So I think it's all about scale. But I like working with independent presses. I've enjoyed working with Steve Berman at Lethe. I've enjoyed working with Paul Miller at Earthling. I would work with them both again. I have not enjoyed working with some other small presses.
Names.
because I think they don't. There's like sometimes you either get it or you don't get it, right? And it's like, and they get it. Those guys get it. And Paul and guys like Paul and Steve, they're like, it's about the story, it's about the writer, it's and but I think with big presses though, it's like, I have friends who obviously have a lot of friends who have sold to big publishing houses, and we talking a little bit about it. The money is good, right? The money's better, and the distribution, more importantly, you're selling a lot more books. Even if the book doesn't do well, quote unquote, you're still selling probably 10 times what you'd be selling with an independent press. So for me, I would love to have that opportunity because I would like more people reading my stuff. There's only so much a small press can do. They don't have a marketing department. They don't have money to throw at advertising. They don't have the time to do a lot of that stuff because they're one person or whatever. So I try and do as much of that on my own, but even, again, there's only so much time. So that's so there's pros and cons, but I do like working with I was talking in that, the Fracassi group, we were talking a little bit about, someone asked about book covers, and, like doing a book cover like this was something that I worked with Steve Berman on, and we talked about it, and we collaborated on what do you want. And I said, well, I kind of wanted to bring in Francois Valancourt to do it. And he was like, that's cool. Let's talk about the money. We worked together to make that happen. Whereas with Skyhorse, I'm like, here's 5 book covers that I like, and they're going to make the book cover, and I'm not going to have anything to say about it.
Yeah. So, they're probably looking at market share and, focus groups and things like that. People inform them on strategies and things like that. Whereas, like you said, it's about at these other presses about your story and the art. And it's interesting because there were only 500 well, this is the arc, but there are only 500 of these. And even a book that doesn't sell all that well, each time they go to the airport and they see your name on a cover, it's advertising. So even if it's not selling and flying off the shelf, it makes it easier for that name recognition. And I've seen this person, must be good. They've been everywhere,
Right.
It does make it. You're not going to get that opportunity with 500 books, but I can't imagine why you wouldn't find a trade release. And I'm not sure, do you have that trade release coming for this?
Man, no, it's killing me.
Not yet. I
get PM'd literally multiple times a week or people messaging me on, or, post on Facebook or whatever. And they're like, when's an ebook? When's the audiobook? When's the paperback? And I'm like, I'm working on it. We are working on it. We are working on it. My agent is really working. My agent has, she's there's a lot going on with my stuff right now, which is great, but it's also like she's got other clients she's got so she's like, you get 10% of my day, dude. And it's like, and she's dealing with foreign rights stuff, and she's dealing with this other novel she's trying to shop called The Blue Butterfly, and I'm like pushing boys that are like, Elizabeth, we got to people want this book, can you just make it go, please? And she's like, yeah, I'm working on it. So it takes time. And even if I were to sell it tomorrow, it's not coming out for a year. So it bums me out because there's a lot of interest right now, and people do want to read that book because there's a bit of there's a bit of buzz and people are talking about it
right now. Right.
and I'm like, I got nothing, I got nothing for you. I'm sorry. I wish I did. Interestingly, with how much Gothic, I confuse myself with which book is which. Gothic is Earthling, right, in November, but I had already sold that book to Cemetery Dance for the trade.
Oh,
edition.
wow. I was wondering how that came about.
Yeah, so I sold it to CD, and then I turned around and went to Paul and said, "Hey, I sold the trade rights, and it's coming out in February of 2023. But would you be interested in doing a special deluxe hardcover edition? Because they're not going to do a hardcover, and I think there's a market for it. And Paul normally only does first runs, so for him, so he's still getting the first run. It'll be out in November of this year, but he's doing a smaller run. So that Boys in the Valley is only 500 copies. I think Gothic is going to be about half of that. Wow. So they're going to probably go pretty fast. But the good news is that now when people say, "Hey, but I want to buy the ebook or I can be like, right. February, it's coming out in February, Cemetery Dance." So that I like that situation. And Josh Malerman has done that. It's a really nice it's a nice luxury to be able to just sell it twice. But you couldn't, but it's complicated. So I'm trying to sell Boys, for example. I'm trying to sell it to some bigger presses because I do think it's, I think it could maybe sell to someone like that. Yeah. But there's a lot of problems because it's already been published. Not so much because of the sales numbers, because 500 copies doesn't really matter in the big picture, but because there's media issues with like reviewers and stuff like that. So these big houses are like, oh, we want to be able to break it. We want to be able to announce it, so I don't know. So it's really convoluted, but I'm working on it. It's just, it's all just going to take a little bit of time.
Wow. That's wild. And it had to be a headache. How was it with Paul working with CD? Cause that's a crazy way to go. They already had the rights, and then they're like, they had to surrender the idea of there's going to be 250 copies that take up the space, because Earthling and Cemetery Dance are right next to a lot of people on their list of publishers they buy from. So I'm just saying that to me feels very generous of Cemetery Dance. I don't know how much control they had over this situation, but
well,
I know they worked together with that lettered edition of On This the Day of the Pig too. So
yeah, well, so Cemetery Dance. First of all, I was very open about everything. There was no gotchas. When I was talking to Kevin Lucia, who took over the trade, who's now in charge of the new kind of trade division at Cemetery Dance. He's the one who bought the book. I said, look, what do you think about me selling a deluxe to Earthling? And he was like, yeah, that sounds great. Sure. Cool. So I was like, okay. So then I definitely asked. I didn't tell.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
And Paul knew the same thing. I told Paul, I said, look, Cemetery Dance and is going to put it out in February, blah, blah, blah. So, but I tell you something, since this is probably the best experience I've ever, not that I've been doing this for a long time, but I've dealt with a lot of people. This is one of the best experiences I've ever had, because Cemetery Dance and Earthling have been working so closely together on press, who's going to do the review, who's going to do the review, the big reviews, like the Publishers Weekly, the book list, the Library Journal, the covers, what's your cover going to look like? What's our cover going to look like? And I'm kind of in the middle of it all, which is great. And they're both sort of, and like, so, Paul did some proofreading, and I sent those changes to Cemetery Dance. Cemetery Dance had their proofreader, and I sent those changes to Earthling. So so it's been really fascinating, and it's been a lot of fun. And I would love to work with both publishers again, and hopefully I will. But no, it's been an interesting experience because we're kind of prepping both books at the same time. Yeah. So I'm seeing interior layouts from Cemetery Dance, and I'm seeing the cover art from Earthling that Glenn Chadbourne did, which is amazing. And
that's so cool.
Yeah, and it's been cool because it's been a lot of fun. This is the publishing is the fun part. The writing is great. I love it. It's my passion, right? But publishing is where it's really where you're having the fun, right? That's the payoff in a way for all the hard work, because it's like, okay, let's talk about the cover, and let's talk about when we're going to put it out, and let's talk about the reviews. And so it's really, there's a lot of joy involved with that problem normally.
Yeah.
in this instance, there's a lot of joy involved with it. In other instances, it can be a real drag when you're like yelling at the publisher to do stuff that they're supposed to be doing, they're not doing it. But
right. I can imagine it's like buying a house and then you get to decorate it. Like,
yeah,
it's the hard work's over, the sweat's over. You have this finished product and it's beautiful, and then you're like, how are we going to dress this up and introduce it to people? What about CD doing Boys in the Valley?
Yes, maybe.
Yeah, because I'm like, when you said, I said Kevin Lucia, so I'm glad you corrected.
No, I don't know. You could be right. Hey, Lucia.
So he came on the scene right before Brian James Freeman left, and I didn't realize he was going to head up a trade edition. I think that's exactly where CD needs to go. I think that's a good move for them. They do have a lot of success getting trade editions out. So if they do Boys in the Valley, I think that'd be great. I mean, I would, I already have my signed edition and I have the ARC. That would be cool. So
yes, I'm definitely debating. There's a time frame. There's like, okay, there's windows. Let's start here and let's give that like 2 months. And if all those people say no, then let's go over here. And I do have a kind of standing out for. I don't know, but I would love to work. But I tell you this, and this is interesting to say that, because I just emailed my agent yesterday and I said, you know what, let's definitely, CD would have to want it. I don't know if they'd even want it, but let's definitely put CD on the map, because just because over the last month, literally, I've had such a joyful experience working with them. And it's not just the response at which they are, but it's also, they are doing things that bigger publishers don't do. People who have more, people to help them. So I'm really happy with the way it's going with Cemetery Dance in regards to this, the new trade division or whatever they're going to do. I think what happens with those hardcovers and with the deluxe stuff is they got to get like some special introduction written, and then they got to get the signature sheets done, and and then now they're waiting for the special bindery to do the special binding thing, and so it takes forever, right? And you're well aware of that. So and you and I both, right? So whereas the paperbacks, it's like this is, you need a cover and here we go.
So how many copies of Gothic the trade will there be? So I'm just trying to understand, when they go trade, is it 5,000, 10,000 or less?
As far as like a first run?
Copies, first run.
Well, I don't know how Kevin's doing it. I assume it's going to be print on demand.
Okay.
I assume. Well, but so the way it works is, so for example, Beneath the Pale Sky, my collections, for example, technically those are not print on demand. They are available via Ingram, the distributor. So Barnes and Noble can buy copies, or whoever can buy copies, libraries can buy copies, etc. So you have to be through a distributor like Baker and Taylor, or I don't know if they're even around anymore, but Ingram. So but the way it works is Steve will have he'll have to print a certain amount so that they can have copies warehoused, a certain amount of copies in the way, because otherwise Ingram says we have to have at least X amount of copies at our disposal. So if people are ordering, we're not waiting for you to print them. Yeah. But you're still printing sort of on demand, but you're still printing as needed. Like they'll be like, okay, we're down to 100 copies. You need to send us another 500 or whatever it is. So I think that's kind of how it works nowadays. In the old days, you would be like, because they would make plates, the printer, and it's called offset printing, and they would print X amount of copies and they would charge you less and less and less depending on how many copies you made per copy. So, but and Random House or whoever, they're doing first runs of like, depending on who the author is, I think their minimum is like something like 10,000 copies, and then if it's Stephen King, it's like 500,000 copies or whatever. So I think with Cemetery Dance, and I don't want to speak for them, I'm only kind of educated guess, is that they would do it similarly to how Lethe is doing it, which is they have a distributor, but they do it only as needed, print as needed. Yeah. So there really won't be like a first printing of that book. It'll just kind of be like, there it is. Forever and ever.
It's because my Commodore was printed in Moni, Illinois, with that date on it.
I don't really. So this is right. So this is Beneath the Pale Sky, and it's same. It's got that print on demand code. So, but Barnes and Nobles carries it. So, so I think that's how it works. It's like, okay, but you can do this through Ingram. Well, not to get too, or you can print through Ingram. Because if you're not printing through Amazon, and if you're printing through Ingram, then they take care of all the machinations of it. Which I think is what Steve Berman does at Lethe. I don't know what Cemetery Dances does.
Yeah, no, it's really interesting. It's such a crazy new era with print on demand that you do take a lot of that risk out of, well, we got 1,000 copies of this dud sitting in our warehouse. We can't move them, so you just create the space. This was a great read. I loved it. And I think it's amazing that in this book we have art. Like, you don't see that much.
And it's actually a full color printing. The whole book is full, which is why it's a little pricier for a paperback. But the reason is because they wanted it to be really sharp looking, and it is. But if you look at like some of the chapter breaks where they do the tick 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 situation, those are color too. So it's a full color printing. It's a beautiful book. I love that book, and I love that story. I'm a little bummed out that it didn't do. It didn't take off as well as I would have hoped, but the reviews have been really great, and people seem to like it. So, but I think in time maybe it'll pick up steam. And
I think if
it's out there now.
So it didn't sell. I mean, it was a great read. I thought I was predicting where it was going. I had no.
It goes to the banana ship is where it goes.
And I don't want to do spoilers or anything, but if you're like me and you're sitting there reading the book thinking this is going to happen, for example, when the group of kids is separate from their leader, and they go off in one direction, and there's a little lag time before their leader or their other friend gets there. I'm like, oh, the author is Philip is setting up this situation. And it was totally not that situation. And it was great. And then I read your afterword, and you talked about and I just threw 4 stars up on Goodreads for it. I should do Amazon reviews, because the Amazon reviews get more traction. I think more eyes there. I don't know.
But then you got to actually write something.
Yeah.
You got to be like, I really enjoyed this book. It was 4 stars.
Oh no, I always do. Well, I didn't because I didn't have time for Deathless from Jeff Strand. But I threw that up there. I said King had Derry. King actually had Derry, Salem's Lot. He had a bunch of towns, Haven, Castle Rock. But I'm like, King had Derry, Mallerman had Goblin, and you have Sabbath. And that's where your afterword took me. Right. I didn't realize there was another story in. I think you said it's in Beneath the Pale Sky.
Soda Jerk. Yeah. And so now Soda Jerk is so Commodore is sort of the prequel to Soda Jerk in a way.
Yeah.
Or the events take place.
Yeah. It totally got me excited to read that next. And then are you going to do a full-length Sabbath novel? I mean, I think that would be awesome. And I think people would love to see, not necessarily a collection of stories would be great too, but a full-length Sabbath novel, is that anything you're interested in doing?
Yeah, I'm interested in exploring the town of Sabbath more. I actually wrote, I wrote a story called Marmalade, which is in the Bad Book, which also takes place in Sabbath. And I wrote and I have some ideas. I definitely have some ideas for some other stories that I want that take place there. And the idea is, I just like the fact that I like the fact that it's sort of like a Bradbury town, small
Yeah.
town,
Yeah.
with sort of like there's a little bit of Lovecraftian vibe, and
Oh,
then
just
there's
a little.
also
Yeah.
some really, and then there's some really just kind of like weird cosmic horror. Um, and there's a definite mythology to it. Which I have in my head. But as far as like the monster in the lake and the milkshake and all that kind of fun stuff, so yeah, so I would. I'm kind of back and forth on whether to do something full length or novel length, or whether to do, to your point, a series of stories. But you just now you saying that, I part of me wonders if like a novel is a better idea. I feel like maybe the stories that all take place in one town thing is, I don't know, maybe it's like feels a little done.
Yeah, it is done. But, I was reflecting on it when I finished, and I thought the brilliance of that is you've created this space, this place. And like I've been primed, right? I read Commodore, or if people read Soda Jerk, you're sort of primed. So if I open a book and it says, Bill and Emily were driving and and they were tired, and the next exit said Sabbath for 4 miles.
Right.
And they took that exit. I'm like, there. It's really
Right.
cool, because you have this web you've built that, or this thing that then will automatically vibrate. It'll automatically put your readers in a place. And like, just like anything else, you're going to want to know, oh, well, we passed that store the other day, but now we're going in, I don't know. So I just think, I thought there's a brilliance to it. It's just like,
yeah, well, even in the, I think, and I'm speaking so that the camera throw camera 1 to Philip for a second. I think, but anyway, we said, oh, what? Oh, I thought it actually said, in the book. I guess I'm wrong. I thought it said it. Oh, it does. So it does say a Sabbath story right at the beginning there. So I'm trying to, yeah, yes, I would love to. I also have I have a bunch of other stuff I want to do, but I do like the idea of doing. I mean, look, there was a reason I did it in the first place, right? And I talk about it, and so in the afterwards. So I definitely want to do it. I'd like the idea of writing a novel. I like the idea of doing a coming of age novel in Sabbath. And kind of getting into there's a lot going on. There's like this sheriff character that I've written some stuff about, and there's like the creatures, and there's like, why are the creatures there, and what's up with the milkshake and the people, what's going, and I have all those answers. So it's not, I do know, and I guess it's just a matter of finding the right story to tell the mythology, right? Because you got to, who's the protagonist and what's happening to them. I do like the idea of, I always like that. I like about writing kids, but I kind of also feel like Commodore sort of does, sort of takes the kid's story. The kid's story also feels sort of done. So I don't know, maybe it'll be something else. I'll think about it.
I think I love how you weaponized the milkshake. I think that's the most brilliant thing since Jonestown ruined Kool-Aid for everyone. But
you'll never drink a vanilla milkshake again. I mean, well, wait till you read Soda Jerk. You haven't read Soda Jerk. Yeah. Then you're really going to be grossed out about milkshakes.
Yeah. So, and it has been done. The town thing has been done.
Yeah, right.
But there's a reason it's been done. There's a reason everybody, because I think the thing that makes human beings, I mean, we're pack animals, we're social creatures, and we are dependent on being social creatures. If anything, COVID taught us that. If anything, that's become we're more aware of it. But nothing puts us in more peril than other people. So we have this wrestling with community, this idea that we are part of a community, but who's in your community? And I think we're all fascinated by it, but for me, it works every time. I think Stephen King's done it a bunch of, like I said, Tommyknockers, Salem's Lot. Then we have Thomas. I have his newest book, Echo, which is brilliant, but he wrote Hex, and that's another haunted town thing. I don't think it matters that it's been done. I think we like visiting these towns. I think we like going there.
Yeah, and what's interesting about the Sabbath thing, the people of Sabbath, as it were, is because it's such a cheat in a way, but because the creatures that live there are sort of celestial, multi-dimensional beings or whatever, they kind of mess with reality, within the confines of the city. So weird stuff happens in the city that's sort of Twilight Zone-y. That's what Marmalade's about, a cat that has the power to heal people. And it does not end well. But but it's only because there's this weird, cosmic energy, that's giving the cat this like weird power. And even like one of the first story in Behold the Void, Soft Construction of a Sunset, I've since rewritten is not the right word, but I've since tweaked that story so that it also takes place in Sabbath, because some weird stuff happens in that story too. So I kind of like the idea that it kind of like expands what I can do with things. But there's also a very set, the people who are there, they're not bad people. The people who drink, the people who drink the milkshake are not bad people. But they have a responsibility, and they take their responsibility very seriously, and they're tuned into this greater cosmic power. So visitors are welcome, but not welcome to stay. So there's a lot to play with. There's a sheriff, there's a weird movie theater thing that I want to do. I have some ideas. So I'll definitely go back there. I just had to decide whether or not I want to do a whole novel or not about it.
And I'd be really interested in understanding the effects of people who they're there, they're tuned in, they're in this town, they don't leave. And what does that do? Like over generations, I think how do they cope and bring in the outside world without ever fully embracing? So
you'll get a kick out of Soda Jerk, because Soda Jerk actually goes into a little bit of that. So I think cool. And it's Soda Jerk's a very short story. It's not like Commodore where it's 25,000 words. I think it's like a 6,000 word story. So it's pretty short.
That's cool. Yeah. I like I said, I have since we last talked, although this is a little bit of a cheat since it's the hardcover, but
you have more of my books than I do.
These, it's like it's a Fracassi stack, TBR stack. It's all its own. And the fact that, I did reach out to Jonas from Zagava to get an arc of Don't Let Them Get You Down. For some reason, I thought I would get it before we talked, and then we could have a discussion about that. But that's nothing. I think I will do a.
Did he get back? Did he get back to you?
No, he didn't. But it's okay. I was going to prod him again.
This is where sometimes independent publisher versus bigger publisher you have.
Yeah.
But it's not because he's a bad.
Bad publisher.
No. It's because he's a full-time job, right? Where he works on a film crew, so he's working 13-hour days or whatever as a camera guy or whatever. So
for sure,
but that's one of the things you take and give, right? But but he does beautiful books. Dude, I'll send you one of these, my friend. I have these. This is my arc.
Oh my God.
My personal arc. This might even be the one. Yeah. So this is the one that I did where I do the actual edits, because I think I mentioned I do the edits in the books themselves. So I red pen the book.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so this is one where I printed this. So, and I have a couple. I'll send you. We'll talk.
Oh, that's awesome. We'll
talk off screen, and I'll get you one. I have a couple of them.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm dying to read it. I'm intrigued by it because I love horror. I love sci-fi. I mean, I love horror most of all. But to me, I don't like things being pigeonholed, compartmentalized, and saying that, this is a horror story. This is a
this is not horror, like I said, but it's dark. It's dark, and it's
And I think exploring, like for example, I don't know if you've seen the movie. Did we talk about? No, I don't know if we did. But the movie Lighthouse by
the Eggers movie,
by A24. Yeah,
we've not talked about it, but I have seen it.
So to me, it I hate to use the word. I hate it, but it was like triggering, right? So I saw that movie, and if you said a horror movie, it's technically, I guess, it's a horror movie.
Yeah.
But what that movie does more than any other movie I've ever seen is really visualize mental illness to the level of, oh man, you watch that, and for a couple of days I didn't sleep all that well, and I could feel my nerves jingle everywhere. So to say, and I know if you showed that at a horror movie festival, some people go, that's just like art house acting, but it gets at something deeper. And I think that's why I'm intrigued by Don't Let Them Get You Down. It's
a pretty straightforward story. I think I might have talked about last time, but it's about a guy who basically no spoilers here, because this all happens before the book starts. His wife dies, and he spirals into a horrible depression, clinical depression, and gets help. And part of, because I've been there, and part of what I wanted to write about is, because everyone's writing about, like, I'm the Xanax girl, or I'm the guy who is in therapy. What I wanted to write about was, I wanted to write about how hard it is to be part of society again, how hard it is to make friends, just to even think that way, to be like, okay, well, now I've lost everything. I've gone through this, I'm still dealing with clinical depression, and now I'm supposed to like act like a normal person, and I'm supposed to go out with the guys and date, and how terrifying and awful all that stuff is from the perspective of someone who feels basically like an outsider or an alien or a freak, to try and act normal. And so this story is all about him trying to work his way back into the familiar and the normal of our society, and just how much of a struggle that is, and how it breaks him, breaks him apart. And so it's, I think you'll find it. If nothing else, I think hopefully it'll be an interesting read. It's told in a very different, very different style than I normally write in. It's very clean. There's not a lot of, like, I'm not talking about the trees for 10 pages. It's about what the guy and what he's going through, what he's thinking and stuff like that. So yeah, hopefully people will get something out of it. But we'll see. You never know, dude. You never know. Never know. No, that's the scariest thing about being a writer. You never. I talked to my wife. She's like, "How's it?" Well, I just finished the book. She's like, "What'd you think?" I'm like, "I don't know.
Yeah,
could be good. Might stink. I don't know. Hopefully people like it."
And the worst is when if you go out on a limb, or you say, "Oh, I'm so proud of this." Wait, I had to stop because you were sipping. You could go out and you could say, "Man, I am so proud of this book. It is the best thing in the world," and then it just lands like, a dead fish. And you're just like, "But don't you get it?" Well, yeah.
Let me explain it to you. You're obviously not getting it. Let me tell you why that book is good.
Oh, that would be worse. I think it is better just to say, "Look, I had this thing, and it's there," and and it is tough because there are. You'll see this all the time. I myself did a video, Stephen King's 5 worst books, right? Because if you have a list of books, invariably there has to be a bottom. The books you didn't connect doesn't mean that's like every book is a relationship. Every new
and it's not just one reader versus another reader. It's when that reader is reading it, what else they're going through, what are they young? Are they old? Are they going through a rough time? Are they, do they relate to the, so it's really, it's, you never know.
Did they ever have to deal with depression? Do they know anybody? And if it, I think it'll hit home for those who are like, when your brain is weaponized against you, you can't run. You bring you with you. And I don't. The only book, it was funny. I think last time we spoke, you said something that stuck with me, which was like, do you feel like you're starting at the top? Or when we talk about Boys in the Valley, you were like, is this like
do you feel like you have nowhere to go but kind of, I don't think you put it this way, but do you feel like you have nowhere to go but down?
I do that. I do that to people, and I don't know why, but I ask the stupidest things, and I'm like,
no, I thought it was a great question. It really made me think, and I was kind of like, and I think I said to you, I was like, yeah, I don't, but the point is, it made me think about it, and I do. Like Boys in the Valley, for example, is a book that like I got into a fight with my agent about it because she was like, I don't think I'm like, no, you're wrong. You're you're not seeing it. I'm telling you, it's good. And I had the same, um, whereas I think with Child Alone with Strangers, I'm kind of like, I really like it. I enjoyed writing it. And I think I think it's a lot of fun. And I hope people like, Gothic. Yeah. I'm like, I don't know. You know what I mean? It's crazy. Really? It's I like it. Paul Miller loved it. Lucia loved it. So maybe you never know. Like it come out, people be like, oh, I don't know. DNF. So I don't know. Right. But you have to look. You have to just kind of go with your gut. And my thinking always is, I'm gonna write what I want to write. What interests me, what I find enjoyable, and then I'm gonna technically and mechanically do the best job I can to create that, so that it's all of my effort and all of my skills are in that package. But do I expect everybody to like everything I write? Absolutely not. I was in a group the other day where they were like, one person was like, I loved this story and I hated this story, and the next person was like, no, I love that. So that was my favorite story. What are you talking about? And they were like arguing about it. So you never know. I just try and create quality and hope people have fun. I don't know.
I would recommend to anybody, any author out there who's feeling down, just go to the 1-star reviews for The Road by Cormac McCarthy and understand you're going to get like this book won the Pulitzer and it's just the most amazing book. And you're gonna get a bunch of 1-star reviews, and it's funny because there's a theme emerges. Like for example, on The Road, they're always like, "This is the most overhyped piece of garbage," or "This won the Pulitzer. Well, here's why it shouldn't have. I should judge this." And I think that should be solace to any writer to go out. You're gonna find boneheads.
And it's just and you're not going to connect with everybody. And the bigger of a chance you take, the more in respect to something like McCarthy, who's very, polarizing. You're going to get a lot of people who are like, it's a masterpiece, and a lot of people who are like, it's a piece, just like Lighthouse, the movie, a lot of people are like you, like, oh my God, that was an amazing piece of cinema. And a lot of people are like, what art house garbage. So you try and do what you want to do. And then you kind of hope for the best, is sort of the MO. But you're definitely going to get people who don't like stuff that you write, and you just have to roll with that.
So you're not just writing though, you're also doing a podcast now. So talk a little bit about that. It's Dark Words or I'm going to do a podcast with the Audio Hopper guys. It hasn't technically been announced, but that's we can talk about it. And
but I don't think Audio Hopper is like,
I can edit it out if you'd like.
No, it's a scoop, dude. Scoop. And we were going to do it's called The Dark Word, and I'm going to do like 13 episodes for this first season, and I have like a bunch of authors lined up already. All 13 episodes are lined up. And it's just going to be about writing. It's going to be about writing, and it's going to be about publishing, and it's going to be about being a professional writer, what that means. And it's from people who have been doing it, for a while, and who have that kind of insight. And like I mentioned to you earlier, it's the kind of thing that I wish existed when I was first doing this, because I would have loved to have heard more about about what it means to be a professional, how to, and how to act, and how do TV and film options work, and what's a good way to, what do you need to do if you get offered a contract, or whatever. And just there's so much stuff I've learned over the last 5 or 6 years, and so I thought it would be really great to do a podcast which is literally just about writing and the idea of writing and being a writer and publishing. And to your point earlier, I think it will be interesting for writers, but I think it would also potentially be interesting for readers too, just to kind of hear some of the behind the scenes stuff and how that all works. Yeah, it's called The Dark Word, and it'll probably launch, I would assume, in the spring.
So, are you going to go to a studio, or are you just going to do it at home, or?
No, buddy, I got this. I got this. I got this. I got
Pretty
this
badass
thing.
microphone.
I got this thing. I have this stuff. They sent me all these things. No, they
awesome.
gave me the gear, man. No, and then my kid showed me how to do filtering on the microphone. So we downloaded some software, and it sounds good. It's sounding good. So yeah, so I'll be doing
Barry White.
It's got a bit of a Barry White vibe to it. No, I don't leave my house, so I'm definitely going to be doing it from home. I don't like what's out there. I prefer what's right here. I control all of this.
Right. So, but you don't need to soundproof it or anything. It's all, yeah. I mean, I don't have anything soundproof.
No, this filter stuff that I have, it's called like the OBS software.
OBS. My son keeps telling me about that.
Yeah. OBS, and if you turn on these filters, it works like magic, dude. And it filters out all the atmospheric sound, and also the other nice thing, there's a couple of nice things. And the other thing is, like, if you get really loud, like if you're like laughing or you start yelling, it's a leveler. So no matter how high you're louder, quiet you get, you're always the same level. Stuff like that. It sounds, and we had to send some audio clips to the guys at Hopper. So it's cool. I'm excited to do it.
So it's putting sound engineers out of work, basically.
Well, interestingly, the sound engineer that I'm working with, I was like, yeah, my son, I downloaded this OBS over. He's like, well, that's pretty much what I do. So you can just send me the raw file. And I'm like, I'll send you what I'm going to send you.
Yeah,
you can sweeten it from there, but put the music, lay some music in there.
Right.
But yeah, he wrote, this guy's he also wrote some theme music for the show, so it'll be fun. I'm looking forward to it. And I can, one of my pros and cons is that I can talk a lot, so I'm happy to, but we're going to keep them to 30-minute chunks, and so very digestible, and it's going to be on Spotify and Apple and everything. So
we've been talking for an hour and 15 minutes.
I feel like I just started. I feel like I just got here.
Keep it to 30 minutes. 30 minutes is like nothing.
The key is I can't talk. Yeah. I'm going to have my list of questions. I'm going to let the other person go into, and it's going to be focused. We're just chatting, but it's going to be very focused. It'll be like, let's talk about, researching historical fiction. Let's talk about contracts. So it'll be, I'm not going to go everywhere with everybody. I'm going to try and keep each author to a kind of a specific topic or topics.
So this
based on their experience.
This is entirely your baby. You pitched it. Okay. So
I pitched it to them. No, it's just going to be
one-on-one.
Yeah. Mano a mano. I know, but no video, thank God. So just audio.
Just audio. Oh, that's audio, cool. So where can you get this? Just on any, like,
it'll be Spotify and iTunes.
Okay.
And then they said they have a whole, like, Audio Hopper has a whole, like, distribution network. So that's all they do as part of these podcasting. So so they have their whole thing. But yes, it'll be anywhere you can get podcasts.
I mean, you talked about being old and possibly getting hit by a bus any second.
Yeah, could happen during this interview.
I am also old. I never ever listened to a podcast ever. Everybody's like, "What's your favorite podcast?" I'm like, I still think it's funny that you call them podcasts when we don't wear iPods anymore.
Is that why they're called podcasts?
I don't know.
I thought because it took place in like a pod, like in an elephant.
Yeah. Is it a body snatchers thing? I don't really know.
Listen, man, I'll be honest with you. I'm right there with you. I don't listen to podcasts, and I'll tell you why. They give me anxiety. I don't know why. I can't explain it. I can listen to audiobooks, but if I'm listening to a podcast, like in the car, like my wife loves it. So if we're going somewhere together, if we're on a trip or whatever, and I'm like, I can't listen to that podcast. The anxiety is surging.
So
the list of things that give me anxiety is long and distinguished. It's not hard to get me worked up.
Yeah, I don't scoff at that at all. But So can you listen to like NPR? Can you listen to like radio shows?
No, I don't listen to anything. I listen to music.
Wow. Huh.
No, and I don't watch news programs, or
Oh,
I
well,
also
yeah.
can't watch. I also can't watch commercials. And commercials give me tremendous anxiety.
Really?
Yeah,
Yeah.
movies, music. I need to be like, I don't know what it
Yeah.
is. I think it's something about. I think what, and this is let's not go full therapy right now, but I think it has something to do with the idea that because of the way my brain is wired, I'm not thinking about what they're saying. I'm thinking about the person who's saying it. I'm thinking about what they're saying, where they are, and how they got there, and and how they got this gig, and what are they going to do
Huh.
later, and are they
Wow.
really that interested in mattresses, or what I mean? And there's, I
Yeah.
don't know, there's just something weird. I just kind of get like, I kind of spiral, and even like listening to like podcasts, too. It's just like I'm too occupied thinking about the real people and not thinking at all about what they're saying. And so it makes me kind of anxious because I don't know. I don't know, man.
It's interesting. I thought you were going to say it's about sensory overload, but movies are about sensory overload. Movies and music.
Yeah, I don't mind. I don't ever. I used to have a problem with movie. I used to have a problem with movie theaters. I couldn't go to a movie theater. Something about being in an enclosed space. I think the takeaway on this interview is that I'm insane. So
well,
let's just.
I think I'm holding the Fracassi therapy right here.
Right.
You get it out.
I love writing. Yeah, I love just staying inside my own head is perfect.
Yeah, like
perfect.
I like what Stephen King. Another quote from Stephen King is, they asked one reporter is like, hey, what kind of dreams do you have? Do you have a lot of nightmares? And he's like, no, I sleep like a baby. And he goes, if I didn't write, I'd have more nightmares. The story's got to get out. And well, that's super interesting. I never consider that. And I, in fact, think my mental health depends on a constant, well, not a but is a frequent intake of fiction. I really do. I remember, my happiest, best days were the ones where I saw a new movie all the time and read a new book all the time. Then you have kids, those priorities shift, and like it's like that. My fiction intake dropped, and wow, it really did feel like I was losing. What is it? Myelin. The myelin is the stuff that covers your neurons that protect. And when that myelin goes away, you get a lot of neurological problems. And it felt like that was I didn't have any.
It's like buffer. Enamel.
Yeah. Yes. And I felt like that natural layer of protection was gone.
Yeah. I have to read for at least, I need like an hour a day where I'm just reading a book, or I tend to get a little twitchy. I also get twitchy if I don't write every day. I get a little cagey. I get a little anxious. So I try and write for at least, a couple hours, and I try and read for a couple hours, and then I can do other normal stuff, and seems to work out okay.
It's funny because I think it is a balancing, right? It is a level. Like your brain is going all over the place. You sit and you focus on a book, and those waves just get more and more leveled, and then you can handle it.
It's very calming. I think it's just like I just need to escape myself for a little bit. It's part of what it is. But yeah, so it's but I also enjoy just writing. For me is sort of the ultimate, like, NyQuil. Like, I definitely it really calms me down. I always feel like, refreshed, and I feel like, I always feel like a little more chipper after I get some writing done. So it's definitely, it's definitely a dopamine flush to get something on paper or whatever. But yeah, so, and that's probably one of the reasons I can, I feel, there's like I said, there's a lot of stuff you said at the beginning. There's a lot of stuff coming out, and I'm trying to really. There's a lot more stuff that hasn't even been announced yet. There's another short.
I can't imagine that.
There's a short story collection. There's a. I'm already. And the thing about publishing is, you have to really be. You're not thinking about the next 6 months. You're thinking about the next like 3 years. So, because the way publishing moves, it's pretty glacial. So I'm planning right now today. I'm planning 2023 and 2024. I've already got the book coming out in early 23. I'm hoping to have a collection out later in 23, and then I'm hoping to have something at the end of 2023, and then that's all kind of stuff that I'm working on now, and then I'm going to start thinking about 2024, with the novel I'm working on, maybe right now, maybe that's like a 24 release or whatever. Yeah, so it's just I just want to have at least, my goal would be to have like at least 2 releases a year from here forward.
Wow.
And maybe, but we'll see how that goes. A lot, a lot of it has to do with, obviously I need those opportunities, right? So,
Yeah.
but I have like, I'm already talking to a publisher about doing a couple deluxe editions of the stuff that is already, is coming out, at the end of, like this year. And so, yeah, so there's stuff that I'm already planning for the next couple of years, but it's fun. It's really fun. And I just hope that the books all find some sort of audience, and that they, people don't get too annoyed that I'm making them spend money they don't want to spend.
Well, I think people certainly have, and I'll make the plug again for Fracassi Freaks on Facebook. It's a great enthusiastic, non-toxic corner of the internet, very rare non-toxic corner of the internet.
Right. Yeah.
I don't hold out hope that if it grows to be 15,000 people, that it'll stay non-toxic, because I don't have faith in people, but it's a great group. You're there. And I think that's awesome that you're very active there.
Yeah. I like it. I like it a lot. It's fun.
Yeah. And you're giving sneak peeks, and I think there's a pinned post that shows all the next things coming out.
Yeah.
So I think definitely people need to get there and check it out, and sign up. Because I think, it's the book collecting community is some of the greatest people, I think, that exist. I mean, all these groups, whether or not they're fan groups or they just like horror in general, they do like talking about what excites them. And I think,
yeah, as you know, I'm a big collector, and there are some toxic groups out there, to your point, and even and I think what happens is, and this is something I would probably at some point maybe even relay to the admins of the little, the 100 or whatever people are in the Fracassi group, is like, I don't want anyone to ever buy and sell stuff there, because that's when things get really ugly, is when people start like buying and selling stuff, and then all these people are like yelling that you're charging too much and whatever, and it becomes contentious. And
I don't even like, on one hand, I'm like, okay, I have an Earthling book I might want to sell. I don't, but let's just say, for example, I did. I want to take it to the fans of Earthling because they're going to appreciate it most.
Yeah.
But at the same time, if the market value on this book is $300 and I take it there and I expect market value, then you're ripping off the fans. And it's like, well,
right.
It's almost better just to take it to eBay. The fans will find it.
Yeah, but they'll still yell at you, but you won't know they're yelling at you.
Right.
They'll post your eBay link and be like, "What is this guy thinking? He's crazy."
I know. And I think that's a shame. And I don't, I admin a couple of groups, and the ones I have total control over. I'm like, I don't mind a difference of opinion, but once you start throwing Molotov cocktails at someone's face,
yeah. Like, I've actually been booted from a couple of groups, so but that's I have other fish to fry, as it were. So, but it's an interesting thing to do, the book collecting thing, and it's fun. Like, it can be. I love a nice book, and that's one of the things that I want to keep doing as I go forward. Is, I love doing these trade editions. I love the idea of doing this book, that's coming out, like the book that's coming out in August is a big, like, I'm very happy that Skyhorse is doing a hardcover edition of that book, and then they're going to do a paperback, a year down the road. But I'm also already talking to someone about doing a deluxe edition of that, down the road. And because I like them, I love having them, I love, and I there are a small contingent of readers who enjoy my work who love collecting the nice editions that have been produced, and just the weird oddities and rarities. So it's fun. It can be really fun. It just as long as it just stays fun, that's all I care about.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you taking the time today to sit and chat about all these things. You got all these books coming out. I know there are a lot of people that are excited. I have a huge TBR pile. And, I will say I'm glad to know that there are connections to Commodore in here, because I was having a hard time deciding what to read next. So, and you're in Revelations. I did mean to talk about that because Stephen King tweeted about you directly. He didn't use the words Philip Fracassi.
If this was the ship and this was the meteor, it just sort of bounced right off this hull and kept going.
But he did say you were in his gang.
I'm in his gang.
You're in his gang.
I'm having t-shirts made.
Yeah, Stephen King's gang.
SK gang member.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the Revelations is it's an anthology that's it's all the proceeds are going to climate control organization. It's really cool. It's a lot of fun to be, it's Stephen King, but it's also like Clive. The list is
huge.
Stupid.
A lot of
Clive Barker's names in there, and
Hill, Lansdale,
Tremblay, Mashman, Lansdale, right? So it's an honor for sure, and people throw that word around, but it really is an honor to be in a book with those guys who I idolize, a lot of them. And so it's cool. And I was like, the reality is, dude, I snuck in the stage door on that one. So it's not, I happen to, the editor is a fan of my work, and he reached out to me because he's a fan of my work. And
that's so cool.
But yeah, so I was fortunate, but it's cool. And I have, I'm going to be in a few anthologies this year. So that are still haven't been announced yet, but I'll some stuff coming out.
This is a cool looking book. My wife's a graphic designer, and so she really dug the aesthetics, the look of Humans Are the Problem. So and all those stories are those are all original monster stories based on pre-existing trope monsters. So I did a blob story. That's cool.
That I like very much. Yeah, if I would definitely say, like, I think if you get into Beneath a Pale Sky, I think is something you'd enjoy. But it's or you can just bounce around, just read Soda Jerk. You don't have to read all the stories. Just
no. I'm weird when I read a collection. I either read one story out of it and then never open it again, or I read them exactly in order. I don't know. It comes
the order is a thing. I mean, that's a real thing. Sure. I mean, I create the order for my table of contents, and it's very specific. I do have a reason for it, and it's not haphazard, but not just contextually as far as subject matter, but also just as far as like the vibe of the story, the length of the story. I don't want people to have like, you want to create a nice overall experience. Like, it's like a record. You want to make sure it's like it has you want to put all your ballads at the front. You want to
right, exactly. And that's what I was going to say, like, talking about being old. I'm one of those kids who would, the day a record was released, I'd go ride my bike to the record store, I'd get it, and then I would sit, and the first probably 3 listens were exactly from start to finish, and flip that cassette over. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, Paul's also because you didn't have to move the needle around, which is
right.
No, you put the needle at the start and you let it go through.
Yeah.
So that's a great way to read it. And I'm excited. Like I said, I have the Child Alone with Strangers, and I just announced the pre-orders. We just went live for that. I've been waiting for that to happen, so I was very happy that finally went. Hopefully, there'll be a cover for that in the next couple of weeks. And that's a big book. That's a 600. It's 170,000 words. So comparatively, Boys is 90,000 words. So double the size of Boys.
Wow.
And then Gothic was coming out in November from Earthling, and then February from CD, and that's a normal sized novel. It's also, I think, right around 90,000 words. And Don't Let Them Get You Down, the one that's the Zagava is doing, is very short. It's only about 50,000 words. So yeah, and hopefully this Blue Butterfly novel will sell, and hopefully this sci-fi novel will sell, and hopefully Boys will find a trade publisher. We're really working hard, and my goal is to get a trade edition of that book out before the end of 2023.
Yeah.
That's my goal.
Yeah, I agree with that move. I think, there's a lot of, you want to get it out in front of people when the energy is still high, for sure. I mean, yeah. So, well, I appreciate you taking the time. I recommend everybody to go check out Fracassi Freaks to keep to the most up-to-date news. I'm also going to offer a code so people can buy, get some free shipping on these books, so they don't have to worry about that, which that's no small thing. That's a major thing with shipping worldwide, especially
worldwide. Yeah. I was surprised that they offered that. That was very nice of them.
That is hugely generous.
Only for subscribers though, man. Only for subscribers.
Yes, only subscribers.
It's very specific Jeff word code.
It is Jeff word code. So I'll put that out there. But again, thank you so much for taking the time. These are
buddy.
Last. And I will see you on the socials.
All right, my friend.
All right. Take it easy.